Hi, boys and girls. I'm going to show you where you can find your assignment for lesson 0801, a whole lot of fractions for math. And we're going to go over a couple of problems on how to do the multiplication of a fraction and a whole number. So I'm going to go to my math course. I'm going to scroll down to module 8. We're looking for lesson 801, a whole lot of fractions. This is a 7-page lesson, so make sure you go through all 7 pages, look at the examples, work through any example problems. Your assignment is on the last page of the lesson, page 7, a whole lot of fractions. It's a 5-question worksheet where you are multiplying a fraction by a whole number, and they're wanting you to draw models to represent that multiplication and showing how to multiply a fraction by a whole number. Now, the lesson, I'm going to go back to the lesson. The lesson, I'm going to go to page 2. The lesson shows all different examples of how you can use models to multiply a fraction by a whole number. Here you've got your fraction bars on the second page that shows you. You also hear this example is using circles broken up into fractions. But I know I was looking through, one example shows like a ruler. Here we've got more fraction bars. Let's see, here they're using a number line. So there are all different types of models you can use and draw to help you multiply a fraction by a whole number. Here they're using a fraction bar divided up. So for the ones that I'm gonna be doing, I'm gonna do using like area model almost. So yeah, this just shows you all different examples of how you can use models to multiply a fraction by a whole number. So make sure you go through and look at all the different examples. So I'm going to go back to the worksheet here. You've got 5 questions where you're multiplying a fraction by a whole number. So we're going to do a couple of these together as a model, and then you guys will do a few on your own. So I'm going to screenshot a couple of these. We'll make this a little bit bigger. All right, so for the first one, we have 6/8 times 5. So how we're going to break this up and how we're going to draw our models is we're going to look at our whole number. Our whole number tells us how many wholes we need to have. So 5. So I'm going to start by drawing, my 5 wholes. And again, drawing on a computer is not the easiest, so it's not going to be very neat. So I'm going to start by drawing 5 wholes. There's 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so I've got my 5 wholes. That's what my whole number 5 tells me to do, is draw those 5 wholes. 6/8, okay, now we're going to take each of these 5 wholes and we're going to draw in 6/8. So our denominator 8 tells us how many total pieces we need to have. So in each box, we need to have 8 pieces. That's what our denominator tells us. So I'm going to draw in 8 pieces. And this is going to take me just a couple minutes here just because I'm using my mouse pad on my laptop. So it's not the easiest, but I'm drawing 8 pieces. And how I draw 8 pieces, I cut the whole in half, and then I cut the halves in half, and then I cut the fourths in half, and that gives me 8 pieces. And I know they're not perfect, they're not even, but that's okay. Using a paper and pencil will definitely be easier. So if you print out this worksheet, that might be easier for you. Almost done. As I said, I'm cutting each of these 5 pieces into 8. I start by cutting it in half. Then I cut my halves in half. I've got fourths. Then I cut my fourths in half. And I have eighths. And again, it's not very neat, but that's okay. All right, one more. Okay, fourths and then eighths. All right, so each of my 5 wholes are now broken up into eighths. And now my numerator is going to tell me how many pieces I need to shade in. So I need to shade in 6. For every whole, I need to shade in 6/8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and again, yours will probably be shaded a lot neater than mine. So every whole, I'm going to shade 6/8 because what multiplication is are groups of numbers. So I have 5 groups of 6/8. 5 groups of 6/8. That's what I'm showing in this model. Okay, so 5 groups of 6/8. All right, so now I've got my 6/8, 6/8, 6/8, 6/8, and 6/8. Now, with multiplication, you should have learned in the past that multiplication is actually just repeated addition. So we've got 6/8 times 5, or you can look at it as 6/8 plus 6/8 plus 6/8 plus 6/8 plus 6/8. So let's write that in here. We have 6/8 here. I wish I would have had some space at the top. So I'm just going to put on the side here. I've got 6/8 here, and I've got 6/8 for model 2. I've got 6/8 for model 3, and 6/8 for model 4, and 6/8 for model 5. And really, as I said, this is just repeated addition. So we're really adding here 6/8 plus 6/8 plus 6/8 plus 6/8. Okay, well, 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 is really 6 times 5, which is 30. And when we're adding fractions, we know that we leave the denominator the same, so 30/8. If you remember, this is called an improper fraction, so we need to divide 30 divided by 8. Remember, this fraction bar represents division. So now we can make this into a mixed number by dividing 30 divided by 8. 8 goes into 30 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24. You subtract, you get 6. You take your, and we have nothing else to bring down. So that's our remainder of 6, but we don't put our 6 anymore for remainder. We make it into a fraction by driving it up over our divisor. So we've got 6/8. 3 and 6/8 is equal to 30/8. And this can be simplified. If you give me the answer of 3 and 6/8, I'll take that answer. You can always simplify too the fraction by, let's see here, 6 and 8 can both be divided by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So 3 3/4 is equal to 3 and 6/8. It's just a simplified fraction. So I take that answer as well. All right, so that's number 1. Let's look at number 2. Number 2, we're multiplying 7 times 1/4. So like we did on the first one, your 7, your whole number 7 tells you how many groups you need to have. So we need to have 7 wholes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then your fraction tells you how you need to break up those wholes into fourths. So each of these 7 pieces, or 7 wholes, I should say, need to be broken up into fourths. So I'm going to break it in half, and then each half is going to be, now I have 4 pieces. So half, and then each half and half gives me fourths. And again, this is just going to take me a minute. There we go. Half, fourths, half, fourths, half, and fourths. Okay, so that's what our denominator told us, how many pieces each whole needs to have in total. Our numerator tells us how many we need to shade in. me get my blue pen here. We need to shade in 1. So 1/4 on each of these. And again, multiplication is just repeated addition. We've got 7 groups of 1/4. 7 groups of 1/4. So that can be 1/4 plus 1/4, plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. Because multiplication is just repeated addition, so now we need to add up all of these 1/4. Well, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 7. We have 7 ones. Our denominator stays the same, so we've got 7/4. Again, this is an improper fraction, so, and this fraction bar means to divide. 7 divided by 4. Remember, your top number always goes inside the division sign. So 4 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. You subtract, you get 3. There's nothing else to bring down. You take your remainder, drive it up over your divisor. Your answer is 1 3/4. So 7/4, which is an improper fraction. When we divide it, we get the mixed number of 1 3/4, which is our final answer. Okay. So once you've done 3, 4, and 5 using models, you can use the models that I did for 1 and 2, or if a model that you learned in the Buzz lesson works a little bit easier for you, feel free to use that model instead. And then when you're done with your worksheet, you're going to come back to Buzz. You're going to go to that submission page. You'll have a blue plus button where you can submit your work.